Okay, so let's, 1 second. Let's begin by offering our respects to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have a question from the previous class? No questions? So which chapter did we finish in the previous class?
7th chapter.
7th chapter.
7th chapter. What is the title of 7th chapter?
The absolute truth.
Yeah, knowledge of the absolute. So what does this term absolute mean? We discussed in the previous class. What is the meaning of that title? Why the word absolute? Prabhupada said in the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we saw that slide, that knowledge of God and knowledge of the absolute are not on the same level. So what is the difference?
God is the controller. At the same time, he has an intimate relationship with his devotees.
Okay, and the absolute? So concept of God means he's a controller. So in that sense, even the demigods are controllers in their fields to that extent, right? Like Brahma is in charge of creation, Lord Shiva is in charge of destruction, the sun god is in charge of the sun planet, the moon god, like that you have Surya, Chandra, Varuna, they are all in charge. So they are all controllers in their own aspect. But absolute is, how does that concept differ? Conception of the absolute means he is the controller. He is the ultimate controller. He is the one from which everything else has emanated. So this thing Prabhupada explains in the first 3 lines itself of the, if you read the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there Srila Prabhupada very nicely, very expertly, he explains how the conception of God and the conception of the absolute is not on the same level. So that's the reason why the title of this chapter is knowledge of the absolute. Another unique feature which I forgot to mention in the previous class for slot 1 is that in this entire chapter, if you see, Arjuna does not speak anything at all. He asks no questions at all. there are only 4 such chapters in the Bhagavad Gita where the entire chapter is spoken by Krishna. So the 7th chapter is one such chapter where all the knowledge that is flowing there is everything is coming only from Krishna. Arjuna has not spoken a word. That's another unique feature of chapter number 7. Okay. So now we will start with chapter 8. Chapter 8 is titled Attaining the Supreme. This is again, remember we are in the middle section of the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhakti section. And this middle section is all about Krishna. So we saw the analogy in the previous class about somebody going for a job interview and first being told what he should do. And then the interviewer is now informing him as to who is the boss, who is the one in control, what does the boss like, what is it that he does not like. So therefore this middle section is all about Krishna, and here Krishna reveals more and more about himself. So we saw a lot in chapter 7 about Krishna, and now we will see in chapter number 8. So because Arjuna has not asked any questions in chapter 7, right? And we saw the last 2 verses, the verse number 29 and verse number 30 of chapter 7, how they are the seed verses of chapter number 8. So we will revisit those 2 verses before we actually start off with the first verse of chapter number 8. But before that, we have to see the Falashruti, or the results of or the benefits of reciting, reading, learning chapter number 8 of this Bhagavad Gita. So the story goes that in South India, there is this place called Amart Kapur. I don't know modern day what it may be called, but because this is from the Puranas, previously this town was called Amart Kapur in South India. And there lived a Brahman by the name Bhava Sharma. Now this Brahman, Bhava Sharma, although he was a Brahman, born in a Brahman family, but he did not practice Brahmanical activities. So he married a prostitute and he enjoyed meat eating, drinking wine, stealing, going to others' wives, hunting down animals, etc. In fact, he used to drink so much wine that it would come out of his mouth. And once he became very sick and he had chronic dysentery. And then after much suffering, ultimately death caught up with him. And after death, he got the body of a date palm tree. So now this person who was in the body of a Brahman, because of his simple activities, now he's got the body of a tree. And being in the body of a tree is definitely not a good body to have, because if you're in the body of an animal or bird, at least you can move around, right? But a tree is there for thousands of years in one place, bearing the heat, the cold, the rain, and then people are carving their names on the tree, right? So it's not easy to be in a tree body. It's a very, very tough life. So now this person, he is in the body of a tree, of a khajur tree, right? The palm tree. Now in this tree, it so happens that 2 Brahma Rakshasas took shelter. Now what is a Brahma Rakshasa? Does anybody know? Have you heard of this term? Brahma Rakshasa?
Yeah, I've heard this term. In South India, it is quite relevant.
Yes, there are temples also dedicated to Brahma Rakshasas. In Kerala,
They were Brahmins.
Correct.
They were Brahmins in their previous birth.
Yes, they are actually those people who were Brahmins in their previous birth, but because of committing sinful activities, now they have got the body of a ghost, Brahma Rakshas. So that's why we have to be very, very careful, because if we are Brahmins and we take to sinful activities, then the reaction is much more stronger, right? Somebody was telling me in a previous class that oh, now they are very happy because in one class we had glorified Brahmins as to how it's a high birth, and Krishna also says that If you are following devotional practices, then and you are not able to complete it for some reason, then you take birth in a Brahmin family. So of course, it's very fortunate to take birth in a Brahmin family. But if one has taken birth in a Brahmin family and is not practicing what he should do being a Brahmin, then the reaction is much more stronger. There is this phrase in the English language also, no, that um, with great power comes great responsibility. So if one is born in a high family, in a devotee family, Vaishnava family, Brahmin family, and is not practicing, then the reaction also is that much more stronger. And if one is let's say one is not in a Brahmin family and he commits suicide, he becomes a ghost. But if one is in a Brahmin family and he commits suicide, then he becomes a Brahma Rakshasa. So Brahma Rakshasas are very powerful personalities, and it's very hard to bring them under control. And it's also very hard to help them get liberated, from the ghostly form of existence. Because it's not a very good, a ghost means what? They have the subtle body. So the desires are still there, but the gross body is not available to them to fulfill their desires. So they feel hungry and thirsty, right? Because they have the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego is that they have the mind, they have the intelligence, but they don't have the gross body. They don't have the mouth, the tongue to eat the food and to taste the food and to quench the hunger and the thirst. So that's the life of a ghost, right? So if somebody commits suicide, then they get that kind of a body. So anyway, coming back to our story. So in this tree, which tree?
The dates tree.
Good access tree.
Palm tree.
In the palm tree. Now, who has got the body of this palm tree?
Baba Sharma.
Bhava Sharma, yes. So now in this tree, the ex Bhava Sharma current tree, two Brahma Rakshasas have taken shelter, right? And these two Brahma Rakshasas in their previous life, they were Brahmins, and their names were Kushibal and Kumati. So this Kushibal and Kumati, they are a couple, and Kushibal they were both very evil by nature. And Kushibal was very learned. He knew all the tantras, the mantras, and the yantras, but he was very greedy by nature. And both the husband and wife, they would receive a lot of charity every day from people because they are Brahmins, but they would not give charity. See, a Brahmana has 6 duties. What are the 6 duties of a Brahmana? Patan Patan. What is Patan Patan? They have to learn the Shastra and they have to teach the Shastra to the others. These are the 2 duties. Then 2 more duties, Yajna Yagana. They have to learn how to do Yagyas and they also have to teach others how to do the Yagyas. And the last 2, they receive charity. So receiving charity also is the duty of a Brahman. A Brahman should not refuse. If somebody is giving them a donation, the Brahman should not refuse it. Why he should not refuse it is because when a Brahman receives charity, then he is giving the opportunity to the other person to get some spiritual benefit. Because when we give a donation to a Brahman, then we get some spiritual benefit. So if the Brahman refuses to receive, then he is coming in the way of somebody else getting some spiritual benefit. So a Brahman does not refuse charity. Okay, so receiving charity is one duty of the Brahman, and at the same time, giving charity also is the duty of the Brahman. A Brahman, whatever he receives, he uses the minimum that he requires for his maintenance, and whatever excess he has put away in charity. Okay.
It is mentioned somewhere. It is mentioned somewhere the Brahmins, these characters.
Yes,
duties.
I will send. Yeah. There is the Shastri code for the 6 duties of a Brahman. I will send it in the group at the end of the class. Okay. So these are the 6. Yeah. So these are the 6 duties of the Brahman. So anyway, where were these failing in their duties? Kushibal and Kumati. They would receive a lot of charity. Yes, they are fulfilling that duty, but they would not give charity. Whatever they receive, they would use it for their own sense gratification. So like that, they led their life, and at the end of their life, they have become Brahma Rakshasas. They are the ghosts, and they were wandering with hunger and thirst, and eventually they have taken shelter on this tree. Then the wife asks her husband, she's asking her husband, how can we get relief from this curse of a Rakshas body? So they are, of course, the being in that body is again very, very difficult, very miserable condition for them. So now the wife is asking the husband, how can we get relief from this body? The husband, Kushival, he replies, because remember, he's very, very knowledgeable. He knows all the yantras, mantras, and the tantras. So he's very knowledgeable. So therefore, now he's replying, and he tells him, he tells his wife, he tells her that you can get, where we can get rid of this curse by knowledge about Brahman, by knowledge about Atman, and by knowledge about karma. So now he's using some technical terms. Okay. Now he says, without knowledge of these three items, it's not possible to get rid of this Rakshas body that we have. Now, of course, the husband knew the meanings of these terminologies in Sanskrit, but then the wife is not aware what do these terms mean in Sanskrit. So she is asking her husband in Sanskrit, Kim Tat Brahma. Kim means what? Okay. Kim Tat Brahma. Kim Adhyatmam. What is Adhyatma? Kim Adhyatma. Kim Karma Purushottama. Kim Karma. What is karma? So she's asking the meanings of these terminologies to her husband in Sanskrit. Now, actually, these lines are the first half of the first shloka of chapter number 8. So she has unknowingly recited the first half shloka of the first shloka of chapter number 8. Now, after she has done this, okay, actually barely she had finished her sentence when suddenly Bhava Sharma broke out of the tree. Remember, Bhava Sharma is the soul trapped in the tree body. So now Bhava Sharma broke out of the tree and he has attained the Brahman's body again. And then an airplane arrived, and on that airplane, Kushibal and Kumati are requested to board the airplane, and then they go back to Vaikuntha. Now, who has not yet gone back to Vaikuntha? Who's left behind?
Bhava Sharma.
Bhava Sharma, right? So Bhava Sharma has not yet gone back to Godhead. So meanwhile, Bhava Sharma, who has not yet attained moksha in his new Brahman body, he went to Kashipur and he wrote down that half shloka, what he heard, right? He heard from the wife. So he wrote down that verse. He went to Kashipur. He sat down on the banks of the river Ganga, and every day he kept reciting this half shloka that he heard when he was in the tree body. Because he just saw, no, just by reciting that, these two have gone back to Vaikuntha, and I have come out of the tree body. I have got back my Brahman body. So he's amazed. So he keeps on reciting that half shloka. And while he was doing that, in Vaikuntha Loka, Lord Vishnu, he rises, and Goddess Lakshmi asks him, where are you going? So Lord Vishnu says, my devotee is chanting and he's thinking of me. And therefore, I also have been thinking of him. And therefore, I have to award him. I have to give him my bhakti. I have to award him devotional service to me. So like that, Vishnu awards bhakti to Bhava Sharma and also delivered all of his ancestors. So not only was Bhava Sharma eventually awarded moksha, but even his ancestors got the benefit of it. So therefore, what is the Falashruti of chapter number 8? First of all, it burns sinful reaction. We saw how Bhava Sharma and the couple, all their sinful reactions were burned just by reciting half shloka. Then burns desire to engage in sinful activities, because Bhava Sharma, now that he's got the Brahman's body, he no more is interested in engaging in these sinful activities. Third, it cleans our consciousness. So even Bhava Sharma's consciousness was so pure and clean that now he's gone to Kashipur and he's reciting these verses by the side of the Ganges. So his consciousness is also now clean. Krishna Bhakti will be established in the heart. So same thing, we saw how Bhava Sharma was awarded Bhakti by Krishna or Lord Vishnu. And even Bhava Sharma's ancestors were benefited. So therefore, it helps the departed attain better destination. This is the Falashruti or the benefit of reciting, learning, reading this chapter number 8. So these stories are from the Padma Purana, a conversation between Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi, but it is re-spoken by Lord Shiva to Parvati. Okay. So we need some. Okay, there is a question here. Mataji, how can Bhava Sharma be able to move because he is in the body of a tree now? So his lifetime in the body of a tree has now come to an end beforehand because of the strength of the purification of the recitation of the verses. Okay, so anyway, these stories are from the Padma Purana, which is like millions and millions of years back, and lot of miracles can happen on the strength of chanting the holy name or on the strength of reciting the shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so these belong to another age. It may be a little difficult to understand if we try to literally think that he jumped out of a tree body. I mean, it's not that he literally jumped out of the tree body, but it's just we have to understand that the life he had to spend in the body of a tree has been cut short, and the Brahman body has been restored to him. That's how we understand it. Okay, Gayatri.
Yes, Mataji, I got it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we have to revisit, as I said, the last two verses of chapter number 7. We need some volunteers to read. Who can read today?
Can I read the translations?
Yes, Devina, you can read the translations. Thank you. And now for the other text. Arman, would you like to read the other text?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Harman. Okay, so let's visit 7.29 and 7.30. In here, in these last two verses, Lord Krishna also has used some technical terms. So I have put them in bold here in the shlokas. In 29, he used the word Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma, and in 30, Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, Adi Yagya. So these technical terms that Krishna has used in 29 and 30, now Arjuna is going to ask Krishna to explain what do these terms mean. Okay. And also in 29 and 30, Krishna has introduced a new category of bhaktas or devotees who desire liberation. So they are called as Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. See, if you read the translation of 29, it says intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. So these categories of people, the Yoga Mishra Bhaktas, they desire liberation. But at the same time, they are devotees because they take refuge in Krishna. They are engaging in bhakti. They are engaging in devotional service, but the desire is liberation. So they are called as Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. We have to remember this term because Krishna will be comparing Yoga Mishra Bhaktas with Shuddha Bhaktas, pure devotees in this chapter. Okay. So who are the Yoga Mishra Bhaktas? Number one, they desire liberation. They do not want sense gratification because they are engaging in devotional service. They are not interested in sense gratification. And three, they accept the supremacy of Krishna. They accept that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. They are the Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. Now, how does a Bhakti Yogi differ from a Yoga Mishra Bhakta? Do all these 3 points go in the definition for a Bhakti Yogi, a pure Bhakti Yogi? Or some element will be subtracted or added from this?
Actually, Bhakti Yogi, they should not be desiring even liberation from what I remember of the last class. Mother.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So they do not desire liberation. And point number 2 and point number 3 definitely match for a Bhakti Yogi. They do not want sense gratification. They accept the supremacy of Krishna, but they do not even desire liberation. What is the only thing that they desire?
To be
Serving the
Lord.
God.
To serve the Lord.
Yes, they only want to serve the Lord. Very nice. So let us try to understand a little bit more about the Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. Let's see the transition, because remember the yoga ladder, right? How the yoga ladder elevates a practitioner from the lower rungs to the higher rungs. And then Krishna spoke about the Ashtanga yoga process in chapter 6. In chapter 7, he spoke about Bhakti yoga. So let us see the transition of an Ashtanga yogi from point A to point C. Now, point A is 100% pure Ashtanga yogi, okay? And point C is 100% pure, pure devotee, pure bhakta. Now, B is the halfway point, middle section. Now, when an Ashtanga yogi is progressing from point A to point C and he crosses B, when he crosses the halfway mark, then in him, the bhakti aspect is more than the Ashtanga yoga aspect. So there is more bhakti in him than there is the Ashtanga yoga aspect in him once he crosses the halfway point in his transition. That portion, okay, after crossing the midway up till he reaches the pure bhakti stage, that is a Yoga Mishra Bhakta. Okay, that transition, that is a Yoga Mishra Bhakta. So let's just remember this. We will be using this later in the chapter. So correction between chapter 7 and chapter 8. Let's first chant. Please repeat Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Okay, let's read, Harman.
Yes. Last two verses, connection between chapter 7 and chapter 8. Last two verses of chapter 7, Lord uses 6 technical terms. Arjuna asks for clarification of these terms and thus asks 7 questions in text 8.1 and 2. First, Krishna answers the first 6 questions and then discusses the 7th question in detail. Krishna also discusses Yoga Mishra Bhakti, devotional service mixed with yoga, Shraddha Bhakti, unmixed pure devotional service, and factors that determine soul's destination when it leaves the body.
Okay. So this chapter is divided into 6 sections. We'll see how far we can go today. Section 1 is the first 4 verses, Krishna's answers to Arjuna's questions. Okay, let's the verse.
अथाष्टमोऽध्यायः अर्जुन उवाच किं तद्ब्रह्म किमध्यात्मम् किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तम अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम् अधिदैवं किमुच्यते.
Arjuna inquired, O my lord, O supreme person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me.
So how many questions Arjuna is asking here?
5.
5. Kim tat Brahma, what is Brahman? Kim Adhyatma, what is the self? Kim Karma, what are fruitive activities? Adi Bhutam Cha Kim, what is this material manifestation? And Adi Daivam Kim, what are the demigods? Please explain this to me.
अधियज्ञः कथं कोत्र देहेऽस्मिन् मधुसूदन प्रयाणकाले च कथं ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः.
Who is the Lord of sacrifice, and how does he live in this body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death?
So two more questions here Arjuna is asking. Who is the Lord of sacrifice? Where does he live in the body? And final question, how can those who are engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Prayana Kale. Prayana Kale means at the time of death. So how can those who are doing your bhakti, how can they remember you at the time of death? So these are Arjuna's 7 questions. Let's read this text.
Arjuna now inquires about the sixth term, Adi Yajna. By inquiring about Adi Yajna, Arjuna wants to understand the identity of the one who is ultimately worshipped by the performance of sacrifice. Is it Vishnu, a demigod, and whoever he is, where in the body does he live? In this verse, Arjuna asks an additional question, the answer to which becomes a major topic in this chapter. Arjuna's crucial question: how can those engaged in devotional service, the self controlled, know you at the same time of death?
So this is the most crucial of all the questions that Arjuna has asked. How can someone remember you at the time of death? This is very, very important question for all of us also to understand. The reason being that at the time of death, death is considered to be our final exam. And whatever we have gathered, accumulated in our consciousness during our lifetime, all that is going to be tested at the time of death. So that which is on our mind at the time of death, that is what determines what is going to be our next destination. This this is a picture from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is a conversation between Sukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit. Sukadeva Goswami was the son of Srila Vyasadeva, and Maharaj Parikshit was the son of Abhimanyu, or the grandson of Arjuna. And Maharaj Parikshit was cursed to die within 7 days. So now he knows that he is going to die within 7 days, and he therefore goes in search of the absolute truth. And he has a question on his mind. What is the question that he has on his mind is, what is the duty of a person in general, especially what is the duty of a dying man? He wants to know what is the duty of a dying man, because he knows he's going to die within 7 days. So what is his duty? What should he do now is his burning question. And then he comes across Sukadeva Goswami, and then Sukadeva Goswami tells him this. Let's read this translation. Harman?
Yes. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life.
So Sukadeva Goswami is telling him that the highest perfection of human life is what? To remember God at the time of death, to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. He says, Ante Narayana Smriti. Smriti means to remember. So if one can remember Narayan at the time of death, then his human life is successful. Otherwise, he's only going to become, we saw, no, somebody became a date palm tree, somebody became a Brahma Rakshas, somebody may become an ant, cat, dog, horse, elephant, an amoeba, fish. That's not the perfection of human life. The perfection of human life is not to again go and go into that cycle of 8,400,000 different kinds of species. We saw, no, there are 8,400,000 different kinds of varieties of bodies available. That is not the perfection of human life. Perfection of human life, to remember Narayan at the time of death and therefore go back, put an end to the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so let's see now. Krishna is going to start answering Arjuna's questions.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavodhyatmamuchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaro Visargah Karma Sangitah.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. The action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities.
Okay, so how many questions Arjuna had?
5.
7 questions.
Seven
questions, right? 7 questions in total. How many questions has Krishna answered here?
6.
3.
3. Yes, 3. What are the
3.
3? He's explaining what is Brahman, he's explaining what is Adhyatma, and he's explaining what is karma. So what does Krishna say? What is Brahman? The indestructible, transcendental living entity. That is us, the jivas, are called Brahman. Then the nature of the jiva is Adhyatma. So everybody has an inherent nature, right? So like that, what is the nature of the soul? That nature of the soul, that is Adhyatma. For example, what is the nature? Like say water is the object. What is the inherent nature of water? The inherent nature of water is to flow or to quench thirst. Yes. The moment we put the water in an unnatural state, when we put it in the freezer, it freezes and it becomes ice. So now water has lost its natural state. Now it cannot flow any longer because it has frozen. We put it in an unnatural condition. Therefore, the water has lost its inherent nature to flow. It cannot flow anymore. It has become ice. But again, when we take it out and put it in a natural atmosphere, natural temperature, again the water will come back to its natural condition, and now the ice will melt, and again it becomes liquid, and therefore it has got its natural nature, and it can now again flow. In the same way, the inherent nature of the living entity is to serve the Lord. And now we are in this material world, which is an unnatural condition for us because our natural abode, this material world is not our abode, right? Our original home is the spiritual realm because that's where we have come from. So here we are in this unnatural state, and we forget that our nature is to serve. Although, even though we may forget that we have to serve the Lord, we are servants, we are eternal servants. Still we are only serving. We may think that we are the controllers, we may think that we are the boss, but if you go to see at the end of the day, everyone is serving. Whether he is the president of the country, or whether he is the CEO of the greatest organization, whether he is a man or a woman, adult or a child, he is serving. The husband is serving the wife is serving the husband, the children are serving the parents are serving the children. So everybody is serving, everybody is a servant. But we think, because of our false ego, we think that we are the boss, we are the controllers. So anyway, Adhyatma means the nature of the Brahman, the eternal nature. And what is karma? Karma is that action which leads to the development of material bodies. So that karma may be good karma or bad karma. Good karma will give us a better material body. Bad karma will give us a worse material body. But karma is that activity which will give us a material body. That's the bottom line. So when we engage in material activities, we will get a material body. So good material body is to get a material body maybe in the abode of Lord Brahma, higher planet. But the point is, it is still the material realm. So anyway, karma is that activity which will give us a material body. Let's read this.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. Inquiry: Brahman, Adhyatma, Karma, Adi Bhutya, Adi Daivya, Adi Yagya, residents of Adi Yagya. Krishna answers: one Brahman, indestructible living entity, soul. Two, Adhyatma, eternal inherent nature of the self, Swabhava, to serve the Supreme. Three, Karma, work, fruitive activities, activity which generates a material body for the living entity.
Okay, so Krishna has answered 3 out of the 7 questions. Let's read this.
In answering Arjuna's first 3 questions, Krishna has 1. Clarify the difference between the body and the soul. 2. Explain the difference between the activity of the body which causes the soul's bondage and the spiritual activity of the soul executed in the material world, which causes neither karma nor bondage. In other words, the soul is spiritual. Its nature is devotional service to Krishna. Its karma is the material body or its conditioned nature.
So by explaining this, Krishna is not only making a difference between body and the soul, which he also did in chapter 2, he is also explaining the difference between a material activity and a spiritual activity. Because we discussed, no, the soul by nature is active. So inactivity is not an option at all. So then what to do? What we have to do is we have to be conscious. Our activities are material or our activities are spiritual. Spiritual activities are not karma because they do not cause another material body. Material activities are karma because they cause us to have another material body. And so what is the nature? We already discussed. The soul is spiritual. Its nature is devotional service to Krishna. And as we already discussed, karma is the material. So we have got this body because of our past karma. And depending on our activities that we do now, our future body is being prepared. We have got this body because of what we did in the past. So obviously, the body which we'll get in the future will depend on what we are doing now. Let's read.
Yes. The living entity is called marginal entity. Why? Because the living entity sometimes identifies with matter and sometimes identifies with superior nature. Then he has only one spiritual body. What happens when the living entity identifies with matter? Takes any one of 8,400,000 bodies, basis of transmigration, karma, for elevation to heaven, performs yagya, Krishna conscious viewpoint. Avoid such sacrifices, take direct Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead.
So Prabhupada explains, Srila Prabhupada explains this in the purport, that the living entity belongs to the marginal energy. So remember in chapter 7, in the beginning, the first section, Krishna talks about his material energy and his spiritual energy. And he says that the jiva, the spirit soul, belongs to his superior energy. So that's why we are qualitatively the same as Krishna. That's why the soul is eternal. So is Krishna. We are Sachitananda, so is Krishna. Right? But here Prabhupada goes on to explain that actually the soul belongs to Krishna's marginal energy. Margin means you are neither fully here nor fully there. The tendency is there to fall either way. right? You can go completely material or you can go completely spiritual. So that's the margin. So if we identify ourselves with matter, with the material, then again we have to take on another body. But because the margin means we can also go to the other side, we can, if we identify more with the spiritual, or when we identify with the spiritual, then we will get a spiritual body. So margin means we can go either way. So that's why we belong to Krishna's marginal energy. We may identify with matter or we may identify with the spirit. When we identify with matter, what happens? We have to take one of the 8,400,000 one of those bodies that are available. And what is the basis of that transmigration? What decides what kind of body we are going to get? Our karma. So people, they perform yagyas to get elevated to heaven, but a devotee, a Krishna conscious viewpoint is we don't even want to go to the heavenly planets. We want to go directly back home, back to Godhead.
Yes. BG 7.29. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahmin because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities.
So this is verse number 29. If you see, actually Krishna has already answered Arjuna's question. Arjuna is asking, one of his 7 questions was, what is Brahman? So Krishna has actually already answered what is Brahman. What is he saying? People who engage in devotional service, they are Brahman. So he's saying that his devotees are Brahman. But again, the definition has slightly changed in 8.3. What did he say in 8.3? The indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman. So the spirit soul, the jiva, he's saying is Brahman. But in 7.29, he said, those who engage in my devotional service, they are Brahman. So is there a contradiction here? Or can we make a third statement to understand this correctly? What do you think?
Maybe a third statement.
So what would the third statement be?
The soul is the Brahman, the eternal soul.
That's what he says in 8.3. But in
Yeah.
7.29, he says, those who take refuge in me, those who do devotional service, those who do bhakti, they are Brahman. They are spiritual.
Maybe that the ones that do not like there, he would consider it as like a non-Brahmin statement. What is not Brahmin?
Maybe those who are not looking for the fruit of their work and they have surrendered completely and they just do the work with Krishna consciousness.
Yes, that's the definition he gives in 7.29. But again in 8.3, he says all living entities are Brahman. Now in 8.3, he's not making any distinction. That one who engages in he's saying the indestructible living entity means a jiva or the soul is Brahman. Okay, let's try to take an example. If there is this person who's appointed as the manager in a company because his father is the boss of the company. So he has employed his son as the manager in one department. Now this person, he comes to the office, he signs his attendance, right? Or he punches his card and he goes back. And he's not really done the work that is expected from him to do as a manager in that department. So constitutionally, he is the manager because he's a manager on paper, right? But characteristically, he is not the manager because he's not doing the job it takes the job that comes with that position. He's not doing it. So constitutionally, he is the manager, but characteristically, he is not the manager. Same thing applies to jivas, to us. Constitutionally, we are Brahman. Constitutionally, we are Sachitananda because we are parts and parcels of Krishna. That every soul, every jiva is. But when we do not do that which we are expected to do, to serve the Lord, because we are eternally the servants of the Lord, when we fail to do what we are expected to do, then characteristically we are not Brahman. So both statements of Krishna, obviously, it does not need any certification from anyone, but we understand how both the statements of Krishna are correct. Because constitutionally, we are all the jiva, we are all Brahman, we are all spiritual. But characteristically, we are not. That's what he's talking about in 7.29. Okay, this is how we understand this. It appears to be a contradiction, but it is not a contradiction. This is how we understand this. Okay. Okay, so three questions.
Mataji,
Yes, yes.
one more question. When you say characteristically, then is it that as a jiva we have to make that conscious effort of knowing who am I? Is that apart from what we are doing work in Krishna consciousness, that is you said officially, and then when constitutionally we characteristically we have to do the work. So we have to keep on working on our self improvement along with the work what we are doing. Is that what you're saying when you gave the analogy of this sun?
Exactly.
And the,
yes.
okay.
Yes. Yes. We have to be always we have to be conscious. Whatever we do, right? We have to spiritualize our activities. So we have discussed this before, how every activity that we do can be spiritualized. There is nothing that we cannot spiritualize except 4 things. What are they?
The 4 principles.
Exactly, the 4 regulative principles. What is that? Meat eating,
Meat
intoxication.
eating,
Yes.
gambling, and illicit sex.
Exactly. So these 4 things we cannot spiritualize. We cannot eat meat and say, I will offer this meat to Krishna. I will make the meat prasad and then eat it. No, we cannot spiritualize meat. Like that, meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling. These 4 things we cannot spiritualize. But everything else we can spiritualize. Can you think of any activity that we cannot spiritualize? Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, bringing up children, cooking, singing, writing, talking. Everything we can spiritualize. Yes? Is there anything we cannot spiritualize other than these 4 principles? Even killing. Arjuna even spiritualized killing. He was killing his spiritual master. But even that was a spiritual activity because he is doing it under the instruction of Krishna. Isn't it?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is what we have to work on. Whatever activity we do, we have to Krishnaize or spiritualize it. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji.
You're welcome. Let's go to 8.4.
Adhibhutam ksharo bhavaha purushaschaadhiदैवतम् adhiyagyohamevatra dehe dehabhritam vara.
O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adi Bhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of the sun and moon, is called Adi Daiva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Super Soul, is in the heart of every embodied being. I am called Adi Yagna, the Lord of Sacrifice.
So Arjuna had 7 questions. In 8.3, Krishna answered 3. In 8.4, how many questions has Krishna answered?
3.
3. Yes, what are they?
3. A Brahman.
Adi.
What is Brahman?
No, Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, and Adi Yajna.
Exactly. So what is Brahman? Harman, he answered in the previous verse in 8.3. But now in 8.4, he is explaining the meaning of Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, and Adi Yagya. So what is Adi Bhuta? Krishna says the material manifestation, everything material, the entire material manifestation, that is Adi Bhuta. Adi Daiva. So the universal form of the Lord, the Virat Roop. Right now, Krishna showed the Virat Roop to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which we will see in detail in chapter 11. Krishna shows the universal form. But now here Krishna is saying that universal form is Adi Daiva. Daiva means demigods. Devata, right? So in that universal form, all the demigods Arjuna could see in that form. He saw Lord Shiva, he saw Lord Brahma, he sees Indra, he sees Surya, he sees Chandra, he sees all the demigods in that form and all the living entities also. So he's saying that Adi Daiva is that universal form. And Adi Yagya, he says, is the super soul. And Arjuna also asks, where does he reside? So he says, in the heart of every embodied being. So the super soul is Adi Yagya, and he resides in the heart of every living entity. The word embodied means that entity who has a physical body. Embodied means he has a body, because a super soul is not present once we enter the spiritual realm. When we no more have a material body, then we don't even have the super soul there, because the super soul has nothing to do. Once we reach the spiritual world, the super soul is not there with us. The super soul is with us as long as we are in the material realm. Okay, so he's in the heart of every embodied being, a being who has a material body. Okay, so coming back to our inquiry. Inquiry was on these terms: Brahman, Adhyatma, Karma, Adi Bhuta, Adi Deva, Adi Yagya, and the residents of Adi Yagya. So now Krishna has answered 6 out of 7 questions. Let's see, what did he say is Adi Bhuta? Let's read point 4, Harman.
Yes. 4. Adi Bhuta, the material manifestation, constantly changing physical world, always deteriorates, body dwindles.
So this material manifestation, Adi Bhuta, is always changing, and that which is always changing is always deteriorating also, right? The physical changes, it means it deteriorates. The body is dwindling. We know our body now is not the same body that we had some 10 years ago. It's different. And 10 years down the line, we are not going to have the same body either. The body is always dwindling.
Adidaiva, the supreme demigod, the universal form, which includes all demigods and their different planets.
So Adi Daiva, the universal form, the Virat Roop, includes all the demigods and all their different planets, everything. When we see, when we read chapter 11, we will see wherever Arjuna looked, in any direction he saw the Virat Roop. He was not able to see the sky at all. Okay, wherever he looked, he was seeing the universal form. So that's how huge that universal form of the Lord is. And Srila Prabhupada explains that if you want to worship a demigod, it's better to worship the universal form, the Virat Roop, because in that Virat Roop, all the demigods are there. There are 33 crore different Devi Devatas. So how many can we worship? How many can we possibly worship? It's not possible to worship all 33 crore demigods. So if you want to worship demigods, then better to worship the Virat Roop, because there all the demigods are there. But then again, a superior understanding to this is that the four-handed form of the Lord is superior to the universal form. The Narayan form, the four-handed Narayan form, is superior to the universal form of the Lord. And even more superior to the four-handed form, to the four-handed Narayan form, is the two-handed Shyama Sundara form of Krishna, which we see in so many pictures, isn't it? In the universal, when Krishna showed the universal form to Arjuna, Arjuna was shocked and he was completely bewildered, and he was very afraid. He was very scared to see that form. Imagine this person is riding your chariot, and you have you sat with him, you have joked with him in your childhood. Let's say you have a very good friend with whom you are joking, and sometimes he drives you to office, he picks you up, drops you back, and everything else. And suddenly this person expands. And wherever you see, you are seeing this form of that person. How scary that sight will be for us, isn't it? That's what Arjuna went through. And he was saying that all these warriors on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they are all entering the mouth of that universal form, and they are getting crushed between his teeth. So there is blood around the mouth and all that. So such a fearful sight for Arjuna to see. So therefore Arjuna then requested Krishna that please, please, please come back to your original form. And then Krishna shows him the four-handed form, Narayan form. And then from the four-handed form, he shows him the two-handed form. And then Arjuna asks Krishna, which is superior? The four-handed form is superior, or the two-handed form is superior? And Krishna says that the two-handed form is superior to the four-handed form. What is the reason? Because when there is Narayan, immediately there is respect. People who, like, the Lord is residing in the four-handed Narayan form in the Vaikuntha planets. There, the residents of the Vaikuntha planets, they are all aware that Krishna or Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is respect in that relationship. Yes. But in Golok Vrindavan, Krishna is residing eternally as a 16-year-old cowherd boy. So the residents of Golok Vrindavan, they are made to forget that Krishna is God. So there is only love in the relationship. There is no awe and reverence. There is no reverence. So that formality is not there in Golok Vrindavan. So there the residents are riding on Krishna's back. Krishna is sometimes riding on their back. Krishna is sharing from their lunchbox. All these things are, so they are there. The love has completely overpowered or overshadowed the reverence or the formality in the relationship. So that's why the two-handed form is superior to the four-handed form. Okay. Then Adi Yagya.
Adi Yagya, the enjoyer of sacrifice, Paramatma in every embodied being, Krishna himself.
So Krishna is saying that he is Adi Bhuta, Adi Deva, and Adi Yagya. And where Adi Yagya is the Paramatma. And where does he reside? Obviously, he is residing in the heart of every living entity. So what is the point? What is the point that Krishna is trying to make here? Krishna, basically, he's saying that he is the governing principle of Adi Bhuta. He is the governing principle of the material realm. He is the governing principle of the demigods. And he is the governing principle of all the yagyas. Whatever yagya also we do, ultimate beneficiary is Krishna. He is Adi Bhuta, he is Adi Deva, he is Adi Yagya. And where does Adi Yagya reside? In the heart of all. Okay, so coming to again the material nature, Prabhupada says this in the purport. Let's read.
The physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some duration, they produce some byproducts, they dwindle, and then they vanish. This physical nature is called Adi Bhuta.
So 6 stages or 6 changes that our body undergoes. Born, then we grow, then we remain for some time. That is our youth, right? For some time it maintains, but then produce byproducts. What are these byproducts of the body?
Children, you produce children.
Yes, children. So we have some children. So the body is having some byproducts. Then we dwindle. Now, slowly, old age has crept in, right? The body is dwindling. It's not the same. We don't have the same energy as we had when we were youthful. And then eventually we vanish. Death takes place. So this is Adi Bhuta. And this is Adi Daiva, the universal form of the Lord. 2 different pictures are there. You can see how all the demigods are residing in this Virat Roop. And then the super soul or Adi Yagya. There are 2 functions of the super soul, Upadrishta and Anumanta. These are the 2 things that the super soul does in our hearts. He is overseeing our activities. So he is the witness. You know, sometimes when people rob or they do sinful activity, they look left and right. A robber, how does he rob? He will look left and right, nobody is looking, and then he robs, isn't it? But then he's forgetting that the greatest witness is sitting in his heart. That super soul is one witness, and he's seeing his activity. So the super soul, his function is upadrishta, he's overseeing, and Anumanta, he permits, he sanctions the activities, because without the Lord sanctioning anything, a tree, I mean, even a leaf cannot move on that tree. So he is the overseer and he is the sanctioner, Upadrishta and Anumanta. Okay, so why is Krishna saying all this to Arjuna now? What is the point? Let's read.
Because knowing Krishna as the Supreme Lord in these ways allows Arjuna to work as his servant, even on the battlefield, and to fight on the spiritual Brahman platform and in his actual identity. Such activities produce no karma and therefore do not develop another material body. Arjuna can now focus his mind on Krishna and fight.
So Krishna, by telling Arjuna that I am Adi Yagya, I am Adi Bhuta, I am the supreme enjoyer, I am the overseer, I am the super soul, I am the material manifestation, I am the Lord of the demigods. He is telling him that you just work as my servant. Don't worry about anything else. Just do what I am saying. There will be no karma. You will not suffer any reaction because Krishna is everything. And he is only doing it under Krishna's sanction. There is no jurisdiction greater than Krishna. So Arjuna does not have to worry about anything else. He just has to fight. Just focus on Krishna's instruction and just carry out the order. This is how in the army, if the superior tells you shoot, the guy just shoots. If he asks that his superior when he's on the war field, and is he going to go and argue with his superior? Oh, why should I shoot now? Why cannot I shoot later? But this is not right. This is immoral. We cannot kill. If he's going to ask these questions, he is going to be sent home immediately, right? He just executes the instruction. That's what Arjuna has to do. Just execute the instruction. So with that, we come to the end of section 1. One question Krishna has not yet answered. That is, how can one remember you at the time of death? That is a crucial question. And that question of Arjuna is going to form the basis of the rest of this chapter. So let's see.
Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yah prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayah.
And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. And this there is no doubt.
So what is Krishna saying here? Anta kale. Anta means end. Kale means time. So at the end of the time, at the end of this life, then mam eva, one who smaran. Mam eva smaran. Smaran means to think. Mam means me in Sanskrit. So Krishna is saying anta kale, at the time of death, when you think about me, then muktva, you will get, when you're quitting the body, Kalevara means body. So when you're quitting this body, then that person, he will attain my nature, mat bhavam. He attains my nature means he attains me. Okay. And then Krishna says, of this there is no doubt. Na asti atra samshaya. Of this there is no doubt. So Krishna is assuring, okay, he's promising, he's assuring that if you think about me when you're quitting this body, then you will attain my nature. You will come to me. So this is very, very significant information that Krishna is giving in 8.5, also 8.6. Actually, 8.5 and 8.6 are considered to be the law of last thought. The last thought on our minds before we give up this body, that is very, very crucial to decide what is going to be our next destination. And that's the reason why, elders, They would say, no, if somebody is on his deathbed and he's dying, then they would say, they would urge them, okay, take to chant the name of God, chant the name of Ram, chant the name of Krishna, take the name of Vishnu, Vishnu Sahasranam. They try to make the person, remind the person to take the name of God. This is the reason why. So smaran, okay, here Krishna is using the word smaran. So let's see a little bit more. Smaran is not possible for an impure soul. If a person has been living a sinful life, it is not possible for that person to remember God at the time of death. If the soul is impure, then it's not possible to remember God. Let's read this text, Arjuna.
How to practice remembrance. To be effective at the time of death, live in the mode of goodness, life dedicated in service to Krishna and thus always thinking of Krishna, constant and incessant chanting of the holy name, best process. Srila Prabhupada mentions the full Hare Krishna Maha Mantra 3 times in text 8.5 and 8.6 to stress the importance of this process. Tolerate all impediments like a tree. Reference Lord Chaitanya's Shikshastakam, verse 3. Taror Iva.
Okay, so smaran, as we discussed, is not possible for an impure soul. So what we have to do, we have to purify ourselves. How to purify ourselves? By practicing remembrance. To remember, we have to be pure. And to purify ourselves, we have to practice remembrance. Because if we do not practice it, then we cannot remember Krishna at the end of this life. So how much time do we have to practice? Can we start practicing in old age after the age of 70, 80, 90, 100? When should we start practicing?
When we are young.
How young?
5 years old.
5 years.
5 years old. Harman, very good. 5 years. Yeah. Spiritual life begins at the age of 5. That's why whatever a child does, till the age of 5, the mother takes the karma. But once the child is 5 years old, then the child makes its own karma. Okay. So, and if we cannot practice it, then we cannot remember Krishna at the end of this life. So what is the best way to practice? Prabhupada explains in the purport. In fact, in all of Prabhupada's books, now Prabhupada wrote so many books, right? Over 70 books he has written, voluminous books, voluminous literatures he has translated, written the purports. Of all his books, this is the only purport in which Prabhupada has mentioned the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra fully twice in 8.5. If you read the purport of 8.5, this whole Maha Mantra completely he has quoted twice in the same purport. It's the only purport in all of his books. That's how important it is. Okay, because when something is repeated, that means it's that much more important. So Prabhupada explains that the best way to practice remembrance is by chanting the holy name. As we go on chanting, day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out, it enters our consciousness. And it's going on at the back of our mind. Even though we are not chanting loudly, whatever we may be doing, we may be reading, writing, whatever we are doing, cooking, working, teaching the children, whatever we may be walking on the road, that thing will go on at the back of our mind. It goes into our consciousness. Just as how, if we listen to a Bollywood song 3-4 times, even when the song is not playing on the tape, it is going on at the back of our mind. Have you experienced that?
Yes.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Right? So this is spiritual. This is transcendental vibration. How it will not affect our consciousness? Definitely it will affect our consciousness. So that's why Prabhupada insists, chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name. He says again and again. In fact, in this chapter, 9 out of 10 purports, he talks, chant Hare Krishna. He says, keeps on saying, chant Hare Krishna, chant Hare Krishna. So the more we chant, the more it enters our consciousness, and the greater the chances that we will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death.
Mataji, this Hare Krishna is Maha Mantra. So is it Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram? Is that one, or is it Hare Krishna only?
No,
The
no,
Maha Mantra.
it's the whole mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is
That's
the Maha
okay.
Mantra.
That's the first one. Okay, that's the Maha Mantra. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So how we should chant? So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained this in his Shikshastakam. Now, who is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
It is Shri, Krishna and
Lord Krishna's
Radharani.
avatar.
Lord Krishna.
He is Lord Krishna himself in the mood of
Srimati Radha.
he is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radha Rani, or he is the combined form of Radha and Krishna. How many years back did he appear on this planet?
500 years
500.
back.
500 years ago. Very nice. Where did he appear?
Navadvip.
Yes, in Sri Mayapur Dham. Okay, very nice. So the only thing that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wrote is the Shikshastakam. Shikshastakam. Shiksha means knowledge and Ashtak means 8. So there are 8 verses of knowledge or 8 verses of teaching. The only thing that he wrote was these 8 verses. And in the third Shikshastakam verse, he explains how we should chant. So he says, Trinada pi sunichena, tirar iva sahisnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sada hari. Let's read the translation, Harman.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to them. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
So to be able to constantly chant the holy name, we require humility, right? Humility is very, very important quality to have to enable us to chant. We have to be more humble than the straw on the street. So the grass is so, so many people trample on the grass, but the grass does not protest, isn't it? So that's how humble we have to think. We have to think that we are lower than the grass on the street. Should be more tolerant than a tree. So we just discussed how a tree tolerates so many climate changes. People carve things on the tree. People they urinate on the tree, but the tree just tolerates. So we have to be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all false prestige. And we should be ready to offer respect to others. But what's the Kali Yuga mentality? That I want people to respect me. That is the Kali Yuga mentality. But Lord Chaitanya says that we should be ready to offer respect to others. In such a state of mind, we can very easily chant the holy name of the Lord. See, this is another very, very nice verse from the Upanishads, which Prabhupada quotes in the purport of 3.11, in case you have not read it yet. See what this verse says, Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi. Ahara means food, right? When the food is pure, Ahara Shuddha. So when the food is purified, when the food is pure, from that automatically comes purity of the mind, Sattva Shuddhi. The mind is automatically purified when our food is pure. And when the food is pure, Sattva Shuddha, Dhruva Smriti, we can constantly remember. Smriti means we can remember. Dhruva means constant, with determination, right? Without failing, without fail. So we can constantly remember the Lord. So Ahara Shuddha, Sattva Shuddhi. When the food is purified, the mind is purified. And when the mind is Sattva Shuddha, when the mind is purified, Dhruva Smriti, we can constantly remember the Lord. And Smriti Lambe, when we are constantly remembering Sarva Grantinam. Sarva means all, Grantinam means knots, right? Knots or bondage. We are free from all bondage. All the knots are free, are opened up. So we are free from all kinds of karmic action and reaction. And then moksha, we get liberated. So ahara, what we eat is very, very important. We have to be careful what we eat. Nowadays, modern day mentality, okay, let's not talk about it. So we have to be careful what we eat. Ahara Shuddha, Sattva Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddha, Dhruva Smriti. When Smriti Rambe, then Sarva Grantinam Vipra Moksha. So it's very, very important that we eat the right kind of food. So when is the food purified? When we eat vegetarian or vegan food, is it pure food?
No, we need to purify by chanting like
By
at
offering
least
it to God.
yeah.
Yes, yes. We have to purify it. The food is pure only when it is prasad. Only when it is prasad. So just because the food is vegetarian or vegan, it does not mean that it is karma free. Sometimes vegetarian restaurants have this tagline, karma free food. No, it is not karma free. Just because it is vegetarian, it does not mean that it is karma free. It is karma free only when it is offered to the Lord. Because even in the cooking of that food, so many living entities have lost their lives in the heat, in the fire, in the boiling water. Even the vegetables have life. So living entities have lost their lives in that plate of vegetarian food. So it is not karma free. Okay, this is the verse from, so now remember, we are talking about remembrance, Vritti, how we can remember. Now this incident, which we discussed in the previous class also, where Krishna killed Shishupal in the Rajsuya sacrifice of Yudhishthir, right? Now when he killed Shishupal, everybody saw the soul coming out of Shishupal's body and going into Krishna's body. So, everybody has seen this happening. And then Yudhishthir asks this question to Narada Muni. Narada Muni also was a guest at the Rajsuya sacrifice. So Yudhishthir asks Narada Muni, what just happened? How was it possible that a sinful person like Shishupal, he was able to get liberation? How did that happen? What just happened? Can you please explain? So then Narada Muni speaks this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Let us only read the translation.
Yes. My dear King Yudhishthir, the gopis by their lusty desires, Kamsa by his fear, Shishupal and other kings by envy, the Yadus by their familiar relationship with Krishna, you Pandavas by your great affection for Krishna, and we the general devotees by our devotional service have obtained the mercy of Krishna.
So here Narada Muni is saying that how different people have this smriti, have remembered Krishna in different ways. The gopis are always thinking about Krishna because they wanted to have Krishna as their husband. Kamsa was always remembering Krishna out of fear, right? Because he knew that Krishna is going to kill me. Devaki's eighth son is going to kill me. So he's constantly thinking about Krishna, but out of fear. So the smriti is there, but it is not out of devotion, it is out of fear. Shishupal and other kings by envy. So Shishupal and other kings, they were very envious. Dvesha, Krishna says, no, they were envious of Krishna. So they are constantly thinking about Krishna out of envy. The Yadus or the Yadava dynasty, the family of Krishna, were constantly thinking about Krishna because of their relationship. They know that Krishna is family. Pandavas are thinking of Krishna out of great affection. And generally devotees are thinking about Krishna by devotional service. So the smriti can be in any way. They will still obtain the mercy of Krishna. And that's why Shishupal obtained the mercy of Krishna. That's why Shishupal could get liberation, because smriti was there for him. He was thinking enviously, so there was smriti. But of course, what is recommended for us to think about Krishna through our devotional service. By our bhakti, it is recommended that we should remember Krishna. We should not remember Krishna out of these other ways, out of envy and all those things, or out of fear. We should not remember Krishna. That smriti should be recommended, is smriti should be out of bhakti, out of devotional service. So this verse we saw in the previous class. What is pure bhakti? Anya abhilashita shunya. All other desires are zero. What is the only abhilasha? The only desire should be that I want to serve the Lord. Let's go to 8.6.
Yam yam vavismaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitah.
Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail.
So see, Krishna is saying, whatever state of mind one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. So this verse is an answer to all those people who say, oh, anyway, you have to die, so better enjoy life and then die. No, they say, it's not the same. What you are thinking of at the time of death, that will determine that state you will attain without fail, Krishna is saying. So it's not that, okay, anyway, सबको मरना ही है, सबको एक ही जगह पे जाना है, तो खाओ पियो मजा करो और फिर मरना तो तुमको भी है. They will tell the devotees, oh, you also anyway have to die. No, it's not that you are not going to die. So here Krishna is saying, what you are thinking of at the time of death, that state you will attain without fail. So this is what a devotee wants, right? This person, you can see he's on his deathbed, but in his consciousness is Sri Radha Krishna. That's what is in his consciousness. We want to attain this stage. This stage we want to attain, because if we are in this consciousness, then only we can attain the supreme destination. In the Mahabharata, Bhishma Dev practically applied this teaching of Krishna, because when Bhishma Dev was about to give up his body, he requested Krishna to please come and stand in front, because I want to die looking at your lotus face, he tells Krishna. So he wants to give up his body looking at Krishna's face. So that's the law of last thought, right? This is, I mean, Bhishma practically applied this particular teaching of Krishna when he gave up his body. And this is how we want to give up our body. But in sharp contrast, a typical karmi, okay, the story of Lalaji. So this Lalaji has a shop. He has a nice flourishing business, and he's making a lot of money. But one day he has a fall, and that fall is fatal, and he has slipped into coma, and he's on his deathbed. Now suddenly he opens his eyes and he sees all his family members around him, right? His wife, his children, his grandchildren, everybody is around him on his deathbed, and he opens his eyes. And what do you think what is the first thing that he says?
Money.
Money, okay. Anybody else?
Hi Ram.
Hi Ram. Okay, if he says hi Ram, then he's going to go back to spiritual realm.
He'll probably say who's at the shop.
Ah, yes, exactly. What he's thinking, a typical karmi, he is worried, Dukan, subject, all my children are here, my whole family is here. So who is sitting in the shop? Who is taking care of the business? So this is the mentality of a typical, of a gross materialist. Okay, this is how a gross materialist thinks. See, this is the story of King Bharat in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You can see his story. King Bharat, of course, our country is named after him, Bharat Desh, but he takes retirement, right? He goes for Vanaprastha, and he's given up his kingdom. He's gone to the forest. He's performing his devotional service over there. But then one day when he goes for his bath in the river, he sees that a mother deer has died after giving birth to a baby deer. So he sees this newborn baby deer, and he takes the baby deer under his protection, and he brings up, and he's taking care of the baby deer in the forest. All right, so far so good. You're taking care of the deer, no problem. But what happens is the deer has entered his consciousness so much that even when he is doing his spiritual practices, his mind is getting distracted with the deer. That's where the problem starts to creep in, because even when he's constantly thinking, okay, who will take care of this deer when I die? Who is going to take care of this deer? Maybe this deer will be eaten up by the animals. So the worry of this deer has entered his consciousness so much that his spiritual practices are getting affected. And it enters his consciousness to that extent that even when he is dying, he is thinking about the deer. You can read the story in the Bhagavatam. He's thinking of the deer at the time of death. So what happens in his next birth? He is born as a deer. and he gets a dear body. Okay, so this is why we practice spirituality, so that at the time of death that comes to our mind. Now somebody may ask this question. Let's read the question.
What if one thinks of the spiritual master at the time of death?
So what do you think is the answer?
It's not the same, because your spiritual master just gets you to, it makes you want to go to Krishna, not to remember him, but to remember Krishna.
So the spiritual master wants you to remember Krishna, correct? But you're so deeply attached to the spiritual master that you're thinking about the spiritual master at the time of death. Then what is your destination?
Being a spiritual master.
Being a spiritual master? Okay, anybody else wants to try? What is the destination of a bona fide spiritual master?
To go back to
Maybe
Krishna.
Yeah, the spiritual master also is with Krishna. Of course, a bona fide spiritual master, his destination is spiritual realm. So if one is thinking about the spiritual master, he will go to the spiritual master. And where is the spiritual master? The spiritual master is with Krishna. Actually, this question was asked. Somebody actually asked this question to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so there is a nice verse spoken by Lord Shiva to his wife Parvati, which is quoted by Lord Chaitanya in the Charitamrita. So this translation says, let's read the translation.
My dear Devi, of all different types of worship, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is rendering of service to Vaishnavas who are related to Lord Vishnu.
So Lord Shiva is saying that Aradhanam Sarvesham, of all the kinds of worship, Vishnur Aradhanam Param, the worship of Lord Vishnu is the topmost. But then he says that above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaishnavas who are related to Lord Vishnu. So of all the kinds of worship, the worship of Lord Vishnu is the best, says Lord Shiva. But even higher than the worship of Vishnu is a rendering of service to Vaishnava or Vaishnava Seva. Why? Because the Vaishnavas are very, very dear to Krishna. And when one serves the Vaishnavas, automatically Krishna is pleased with us. So there is no problem if you think of the spiritual master at the time of death. Now somebody may say, okay, I have to think of Krishna at the time of death. I will do that. When death comes, I will say Krishna, I will say Ram, I will say Hey Ram, and I will go back. For now, let me enjoy. Then what will you say? How to answer this?
Because if you don't have the practice to render spirituality, then how will you say it at the time of death? How will you remember?
Yes, exactly. So if we do not practice it, how can it will not come to our mind? Yes. The Shastras say that death, at the time of death, the pain that one undergoes is equal to the pain that one will undergo when 42,000 scorpions sting us at one spot at the same time. So can you imagine the pain, right? 42,000 scorpions stinging you at one spot at the same time. That is a pain that one undergoes at the time of death. So in that excruciating pain, if we have not practiced bhakti in the past, it's not possible to remember the Lord. It will not come to our minds. Okay, another way of answering this question. Another way.
Maybe if you don't let them enjoy, for example, if they actually there's actually no other way to answer that in my guess.
Okay. Anybody else can think of another way to answer this question?
Because
You don't know when.
you are not in practice of Krishna's consciousness and remembering and all the life, then definitely you are involved in something else, and that will be strongly, it will be impressed in your mind, and while time of death only you can remember that thing. Like that Lalaji Kirana shop or Maharaj Bharat like a deer, the same. You will also be having that type of something if you are not with the Krishna consciousness.
Yes. So again, it comes down to practicing. What we have been practicing throughout our life, that only will come to our mind at the time of death. Correct. Another way to answer the question.
I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but you had once mentioned as an analogy that if you don't study throughout the year, you won't be able to appear for the final exam.
Yes, the analogy is correct, but the point in the analogy is the same, that what we don't practice towards our lifetime, that is only that, so at the end of the day, it's what we practice is what is going to come to our mind at the time of death. So it's the same thing, but I want another way to answer the question.
But you don't know when your death comes.
Ah, correct. Exactly. Death is not going to come with a notice. Okay, coming soon at a theater near you, or 30 days. 30 days from now, you are going to meet your final exam. No, it's not coming with a notice. We don't know. Death can strike at any time. So even if somebody says that, okay, I will think of Krishna at the time of death, but do you know when you are going to die? Death can strike at any time. You may be young, you may be old, you may be healthy, you may be unhealthy. One may be walking on the road, crash, one bang, death has struck. We don't know when death is going to strike. Right? So death doesn't come with an advance notice. So now Maharaj Parikshit was very fortunate. He was cursed to die within 7 days. So he knew that I'm going to die within 7 days. But we don't know. Yes.
Or you can make the whatever in your life, whoever come in your life contacts, and you just give the name of all related with Krishna only, like the name of entrance gate, name of your son, name of any food. Just give the prasadam Krishna. So they will be always in your contacts at the time of death.
Yes,
Like
that is
Narayan, because he's not remembering Krishna, but he was remembering Narayan. So that is another way to maintain this thing, because all the time you will, like password, you put your computer password Hare Krishna. So always when you will open the thing, always you have to remember it. So this type of you can put yourself in that practice.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's the reason why previously the children were given names that were God's names. But now modern names they want to have fashionable names. They don't want to give God names because they think that is old fashioned. But these are our ancestors, they knew how to do it. Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's read this.
Yes, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one next life. If in one's present life one lives in the mood of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. Srimad Bhagavatam 6.10.3. At the time of death, severe unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who have accepted material bodies.
So as we discussed, at the time of death, there is severe unbearable pain that takes away the consciousness. So then, suppose we have practiced bhakti throughout our lifetime, but the pain is so unbearable at the time of death that for some reason, one is not able to remember Krishna. Then what happens? Krishna answers that also in the Puranas. Let us read this translation.
If my devotee is unable to remember me at the time of death because of disturbances felt within the body at that time, then I shall remember my devotee and take him back to my supreme abode.
So Krishna is saying, even if my devotee is not able to remember me, I will remember him and I will take him back. So bhakti is a win-win situation for us. There is no question of failure. Even if we forget, Krishna will remember us. That's why it's always in our favor to engage in devotional service. So Krishna is saying, Yadi vatari doshena, because of whatever dosh, mat bhakto, mam na cha smaret. He cannot smaran, he na cha smaret. He cannot remember me. Mat bhakto, my devotee cannot remember me. Aham smarami mad bhakta. I will remember my devotee, Krishna is saying. And then he takes him to Parama Gatim. He takes him to the supreme abode. What more do we want? What more do we want? So bhakti is not a retirement plan. Bhakti is not something that we have to do when we have grown old. It's not a retirement plan. It has to be practiced from young age. And bhakti is not an extra curricular activity. Okay, let me do this. Let me do a million other things. And one of the million things I do, let me also do, okay, let me do a little bit of bhakti. No, it's not an extracurricular activity. It's not a crash course that can be done at a mundane coaching center. Okay, all right, I'll give you 5 minutes. Tell me what is the meaning of life. I saw a poster which had a sadhu at the cave, and there is this guy with a briefcase in his hand wearing a suit, and he's telling the sadhu, okay, I have 5 minutes, quickly tell me what is the meaning of life. No, bhakti is not a crash course. It is something that has to be practiced throughout our lifetime. It's a lifetime of preparation. Bhakti takes a lifetime of preparation. Bhakti is Jaiva Dharma. Bhakti is Nitya Dharma. Dharma, duty. Jaiva means Jiva, the spirit soul. So it is the duty of every living entity to engage in devotional service. Nitya, eternal. It is the eternal duty. It's not that I do it when I'm young, I don't do it when I'm old, or I do it when I'm in the material world, I don't do it in the spiritual realm. No. Whether you are young or old, material or spiritual realm, we have to engage in devotional service. So bhakti is Jaiva Dharma. Bhakti is Nitya Dharma. We'll stop here. We'll continue in the next class. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Does anybody have a question?
Many questions we have, but we will discuss sometime else because so complicated, so confused, that related with the Brahman's identity, related with the Brahman's decarnations, and all this is all the matter which we will discuss sometime after the class,
Okay. Gayatri, you have raised your hand.
Yes, Mataji. I had a one question. Can I?
Yes, please.
Yes, Mataji. So Arjuna is asking, like, why Arjuna is asking again about the karma, because Lord Krishna explains about the karma or the fruitive activities in the chapter 3 and 5. No? So again, why Arjuna is inquiring about the karma in this chapter?
Yeah, because he knows that we have thick skulls, Kali Yoga mentality. For our benefit, he repeats the question. See, the more important subject matters are repeated over and over again. So when something is repeated, it's because it is even more important. And again, for our benefit, Arjuna asks these questions. Okay?
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I have a few announcements to make. So, any questions before we go to that? Okay, so I wanted to say that on the 21st of this month begins the month of Kartik, or the Damodar month, which is very, very important month. And it's my desire that we read the Damodar Leela from the Srimad Bhagavatam in our class, so that you would know. I mean, I can tell the story in 5 minutes and finish it off, but it would be better if we read the entire chapter and have it as a full-fledged Damodar special class. So to do the Damodar class, Either we have to schedule one day apart from our regular Saturday sessions, or we replace the Gita class with a Damodar class, and then to not miss out on the Gita class, you see the Gita class recording like you did last time. So we have one of the two options. So what do you want to do? You want a separate day for the Damodar class, or you want to replace it with the Gita class and you see the recording? What do you think? Option 1 or option 2? You can write in the chat and we can see what the majority says. So
Have you
option
sent the
1,
question? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah,
option
please.
option 1 would be to have a Damodar class as a separate session. So we have to decide the day and time which suits everybody else. And option 2 would be to replace it with the Gita class, and you see the Gita class recording, which we will do with slot 2.
I think I would prefer the option 1, Mataji.
Okay.
Because we love this crash course of Gita very much. We don't want to lose any class of Gita.
Okay.
Mataji, even I want separate.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Even I want option 1.
Okay. So
It's okay,
already,
fine.
okay, so the majority has already gone with option 1. So now we have to decide a date and time when it suits everybody else. So what day and time all of you are free?
Saturday 11:30.
No, Saturday 11:30 is our Gita class.
Maybe Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, maybe Sunday.
Sunday would be a good.
Yes.
Okay. Sunday, same time, 11:30 a.m. or
Same time.
10:30 a.m.
Yeah, sounds good.
No, we can make 10:30, please, because we have other conferences on Sunday. No? So
Okay. So Sunday 10:30 in Chile would be 7 p.m. in India. Is that okay for everybody? 7 p.m. India time on Sunday?
Okay.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
that's great.
It suits everyone, right? Nobody has Sunday plans?
No.
Okay. So what we will do is on Sunday 17th, we will have our Damodar special class at 7 p.m. India time and 10:30 a.m. Chile time. Okay. And 16th Saturday, we will have our regular Gita class if I do not have my monthly program. That I have not yet decided. Okay, so that I will inform. So if I have my home class, my home program on the 16th, then there will be no Gita class on the 16th. And those who are in Santiago, then you can come home and attend the program in the evening at 5:30 p.m. Okay. Anything else we need to discuss?
Have you sent the question paper of 7th?
No, I have not sent the question paper yet.
Okay.
I'm still working on it. The thing is, I had an exam to give this week to finish my Bhakti Shastri course. I finished my exam and I finished the course also. So now I will work on the question paper and send it, put it up this week sometime.
All right, it's okay. Thanks, God.
Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me. Okay.
Congratulations for completion of the course.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It was a very in-depth study and it was very taxing, but I'm glad I finished it. Okay. What else do we have to discuss?
Bhakti Shastri is from this con only?
Yeah, Bhakti Shastri is an ISKCON run course. It is an intensive study of 4 books: Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, and Ishopanishad. It's an intensive study of these 4 books. And after that comes Bhakti. Once you finish Bhakti Shastri, then comes Bhakti Vaibhava. Bhakti Vaibhava is an intensive study of the first 6 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And after you finish Bhakti Vaibhava, comes the next course, which is the intensive study of the last 6 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then finally comes the 4th course, which is the intensive study of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to do all these courses. I'm just giving you the information.
No, this is also one of the best way to remember Krishna till death.
Yes. Because the more we study Shastras, correct.
Yes.
It is going on at the back of our mind.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. What else?
Mataji, I have a question. In one of your earlier slides today, you mentioned that the super soul is present in every entity, and that is what makes you take the decisions and gives you the approval kind of thing. That's what I understood of it.
Yes.
If that is the case, it is present in everybody. How do people take decisions hurting someone or saying or doing something? How does it permit if Krishna is present in every entity?
Exactly. So the reason why the super soul sanctions is because the super soul does not, or God or Krishna does not interfere with our free will. Each of us has minute independence. Okay, minute independence of free will, and that's the reason why we have to suffer the karma. Because if everything is I'm doing everything because the super soul has sanctioned only, then I become a robot, right? It's like, okay, I press the button, you do this. I press the other button, you don't do this. Stop. So no, we are not robots. Krishna does not force anybody to take to his bhakti. So that free will, that minute independence we have, and the super soul is sanctioning it because we desire it. Okay, but therefore we have to take the karma because we desired it in the first place.
Our astrology says that free will and your destiny both will work together when the child, while pregnancy of 9 months, mother and father took the care about the code of conductions and that type of, then the child who will born and their free will and the destiny will work together.
Correct.
Otherwise, in that atmosphere, if the child will develop in the mother's womb in the different atmosphere like Bollywood films and all, definitely the child's free will be different and their destiny will be different. Your conscience will say you are doing wrong, but even though you are doing wrong.
Yeah, yes. That's what, no, we say, no, I cannot do this. My consciousness pricks me. It's because we are listening to the super soul. But for some people, their consciousness, they have become so sinful that they no longer can listen. They cannot even listen to the consciousness.
Perfect.
Because they are not able to hear the message of the super soul. Yes, that's correct. But the more we engage in devotional service, the more our heart gets purified, then the more we can understand and hear the super soul speaking to us. So does that answer your question, Anjali?
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, Harman, you have raised your hand.
Yes, that for the people in Santiago, are you gonna give the sticks for the Damodar month?
Yes, those who are in Santiago, okay, in the month of Damodar, it's very auspicious to offer ghee lamps to Lord Damodar. I will explain all this in the class. So if you are out of Santiago, then please somehow or the other arrange for ghee. In India, it's no big deal. Please buy ghee and offer ghee lamps to Lord Damodar. There is a particular song we play called as a Damodar Ashtakam, okay, which I will give all details in that Sunday class. But you have to arrange for ghee lamps. It is beginning on the 21st. If you are in Santiago, then you can come and collect the ghee lamps from me. I have them ready. Next week, you can come and collect it, okay?
The 21st is first Kartik, no?
21st is the first day of the month of Damodar. So you can come and collect it from me on Monday or Tuesday, and you will have it for the rest of the month. So I will give you the whole month stock. You just have to offer it. I will give you the photo also. If you don't have a picture of Lord Damodar, I will give you the picture. I will give you the ghee lamps and Damodar Ashtakam link I will send. You can listen to the audio on YouTube, or I will send you the text also, or you can read the prayers every day. At least once in a day, preferably Monday morning and evening. If not, at least once in a day, I request you to please do. It's very, very auspicious. It's like the month on sale. Sometimes a shop may give away products, 70% discount, 80% discount, right? It's a moving sale. So the same product is given to us at a lesser price. So in the month of Damodar, Lord Krishna is giving away his bhakti at a very small price. Just one ghee lamp, but we get 1,000 times the benefit. Whatever auspicious thing we do in the month of Kartik, we get 1,000 times the benefit. So it's like a shop that is giving away the product at a cheaper price. So like that, bhakti now is made available to us at for a very small price to pay. So ghee lamps, please make sure you have them if you're out of Santiago. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Anything else we need to discuss?
Thank
So
you
we
very
will
much.
keep
Hare
the
Krishna.
photograph of Lord Damodar in our temple and light the ghee diya.
Yeah, you have a picture of Lord Damodar in your temple, and every day morning and evening, if not at least once in a day, you offer that lamp. There is a certain way, certain number of rounds at the feet, at the head, in the whole body. I will tell you everything on Sunday. So
Okay.
please wait till Sunday. I will give you all the details. That's
So
why
has
I
this
want to
to be
have a full
separate than
lamp.
this has to be separate than our daily puja, what we light a ghee diya in a temple, that is separate, and this is separate.
Yeah,
On
this
its
ghee,
own.
yeah, this ghee lamp will be exclusively for Lord Damodar. Okay.
So we will light two. One
Yeah, you
daily
can.
car and one for him.
Yes. Or
Okay.
first you offer it to Lord Damodar, and then you can do whatever you want with the same ghee lamp. But the first offering should be to Lord Damodar.
Okay.
And as I said, the Damodar Ashtakam, you can recite it, preferably recite it. If you cannot recite it, you at least hear the song when you're doing the arti. And we will read the whole pastime from the Bhagavatam. Okay. Anything else we need to discuss?
Thank you, Mataji.
You're welcome.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, all right. Thank you all very much. Have a nice week. See you all on Saturday, if not definitely on Sunday. Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bye bye.
Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.